So this is the 7th week of a series that we've been doing, going through Lent, really preparing ourselves for whatever circumstances we find ourselves in. We prepare ourselves for the moments that we're tested. We're invited to put our comfort before the good of the whole, where we're tempted to react from our minds rather than respond from our hearts, where we rush to judgment rather than hold something with compassion, when we give in to our fear rather than draw from our courage, from the French courage, heartage. And today, we come to prepare ourselves for that dark night, the time when everything seems to have fallen away. That moment characterized in the New Testament by the crucifixion. And today is our Good Friday when we think of Jesus' crucifixion before Easter. The time when all the promise of Jesus' ministry, all the miracles, the crowds, the healing, the sense that a new age was coming, all the progress seems to have come crashing down and left everyone naked and afraid. The women by the cross, the disciples, including Peter, who'd all fled, and even Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane asking whether or not this cup might be taken from him. The light was blanked out. Even the sun seemed to suffer a total eclipse. As the reading that Carol read says, from noon on, darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m. The light was blotted out, and there is a dark night of the soul. Andrew Harvey, quoting Vera de Chalembert, describes this. He says, the mystics tell us that we need a spiritual crisis, that we must enter the cloud of unknowing, the deepest despair, the most profound darkness within, without hope, in order to grow spiritually. They call such a time of deep crisis, of great uncertainty, the dark night of the soul. There, in our radical desperation, is our absolute abandonment. It is said, the divine doctor awaits. Holy darkness is her medicine. In these terrible moments, that's what we hold on to, that this darkness is healing us. But that's not much of a consolation as we go through the dark night, as Jesus had during his crucifixion. It's why the crucifixion is so central to the Christian story. We see the master go through the same dark night as many humans have to go through. And it shows us how we have to respond. Those famous last 7 words of Christ from the cross are really our guide as to how to be with pain. And the 7 words are, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. A recognition that those creating that dark night are so out of touch with themselves that they have a limited experience. And in a sense, they don't know what they're doing. Today, you will be with me in paradise. Encouragement to those who are suffering alongside him. Woman, behold your son. Son, behold your mother. Jesus making sure that his affairs were in order. My God, why have you forsaken me? Recognizing the abandon we feel from the light and all that is good. We have that in our pain. We seem to think that it's all gone. I thirst. These are the 7 words from Christ. Being left with our bodily needs. That's what we're left with, and everything else is gone. And it is finished. A recognition that everything that's led up to this is at an end. And finally, Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. A giving up to the Great Spirit that holds everything. That dark night comes to all of us in different ways, at different times, and in different places. It could be a diagnosis, a health diagnosis. It could be a death. It could be a loss or a time when we have to live through, whether it be plagues or wars or having to live through uncertain times when things seem to be falling away. But we have to see that, as Andrew Harvey goes on to say, it is in fact the darkness that heals us, not our incessant, tenacious grasping for splinters of light and reassurance that everything is going to work out somehow okay. In fact, darkness heals us without a spoonful of sugar. The wound is the gift. Sherry Mitchell, who's coming to us in June, in her book Sacred Instructions, says, "It is often the bearers of darkness that bring the greatest increase in light. They catalyze others to rise up in response to their harmful or destructive actions. Thus they expand the light. Therefore, their role in our larger evolution has to be acknowledged. And our spiritual task is to respond positively to that expansion of light by building something meaningful with its glow." And we have to hold on to that as we feel the darkness growing around us. In the Christian story, we know that the resurrection is just around the corner. And, we've got Easter Day to console us. But the disciples and the women had no such consolation. This darkness was deep and final. Jesus had died. It was a darkness that penetrated every aspect of their soul. And it was truly a dark night of the soul. And sometimes, we can feel that too. It seems that there's no end to the darkness, no way out of it, no escape from it. That it'll just grow darker and there's nothing we can do about it. And the lesson here is not to push the darkness away. We must let it penetrate our soul, no matter how much we dread it. Because as Khalil Gibran says about pain, much of your pain is self-chosen. It is the bitter potion by which the physician within you heals your sick self. Therefore, trust the physician and drink his remedy in silence and tranquility. For his hand, though heavy and hard, is guided by the tender hand of the unseen. And the cup he brings, though it burns your lips, has been fashioned of the clay which the potter has moistened with his own sacred tears. There is something of the unseen that comes into our hearts and heals us when we let that darkness be there. We have to try and stop pushing it away and stopping those incessant, tenacious graspings for splinters of light. And it's not until that we let go of everything. We have to not think that it's suddenly going to work itself out. There will be a renewal. But the finality of the crucifixion tells us that our darkness as well has a finality about it. And it's not until we accept that finality that the renewal will come about. And there will be a renewal, but it's just unhelpful to hope for it during the dark night, just as it's unhelpful to entertain those thoughts during meditation. It's not useful to go into whatever thoughts we have. So it is better to actually be with that dark night. The hope of the renewal is not a splinter of light in the darkness. It is an acceptance of darkness itself, to let it into your heart, to let it flood you, to feel the finality of it, to feel the death of everything that you previously held dear. That death is, in fact, the death of the false self. It is the death of who we hope to be and what we hope for, and the arrival of who we truly are and what is truly around us. On the cross, dying with our lives passing before us. Only then will we be able to utter those fateful last lines, "Into your hands I commend my spirit." And that is the end of the dark night. That's what we say at the end. "Into your hands I commend my spirit." And there is something in that of allowing something greater to come through. Again, Andrew Harvey says, "What the great mystics of all traditions who survived this tell us with one voice is that when we come to the dark night, we have only one resource: to remain in a state of radical unknowing. To remain in a state of radical unknowing. This will have two effects. It will crucify the false self's perpetual hunger for certainty, and it will flay us humbly open to the guidance that can only come if we are totally receptive to it with no preconceptions. We're reborn out of that darkness as we always have been. Birth comes from the darkness of the womb. And in Genesis, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep. And the Spirit of the Lord was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. The light came out of the darkness. And so, we have to fully embrace the darkness that's upon us and respond to that darkness from a unity of consciousness that says, "In this darkness lies my salvation." That this darkness is a part of me. And if I reject it, I'm rejecting a part of myself, and I will never be whole. But if I accept it, it may mean a death of everything I know and love, but by work and by striving, it will be finished. I can give up into that deep trust. As James Finley always tells us, God protects us from nothing and sustains us in all things. God protects us from nothing and sustains us in all things. It's not about doing nothing. It's about accepting that darkness and allowing it to take us where we need to go, even if it be to the death of all we hold dear. Because that which we've held dear is not what is most important. It is just that which we have held dear. And we've been taken into something that is dearer still, which of course is the deep love of the divine. The Hindus know about this through Kali. Kali is the goddess of life and death. Kali is described as the destroyer and creator-killer of illusion and the champion of liberation. Wearing a necklace made of skulls, she is infamous for death, sex, and violence. Yet she is also tender, passionate for justice, compassionate, and burning with an incomprehensible and blissful love. With Kali, we are invited into an illusionless confrontation and embrace the paradoxes of life and creation. This confrontation and embrace demands nothing less than the death of the individual selves, of the illusions and fantasies around which our social, economic, and political structures are flimsily constructed. It demands blissful loving within that darkness. And there is something of the spirit of Kali in the image of the crucifixion, as she fits with the horror that comes from the dark night of the soul. We have to live into the darkness and not reject it, to let it come to us as medicine, and to see how our body becomes new with the drinking of that medicine. And the lesson of all the wisdom tradition tells us that something needs to die for something to be reborn. All the traditions tell us that. Something needs to die for something to be reborn. But that doesn't make it any easier to face this darkness. Our role is to recognize it as part of ourselves and to respond to it with a measure of acceptance, with, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Today, you will be with me in paradise. Woman, behold your son. Son, behold your mother. My God, why have you forsaken me? I thirst. It is finished. Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. So just an opportunity for a bit of feedback. Would anyone like to say anything about what we've been talking about today or previously? Any thoughts or comments? Carol, thank you. And thank you both for reading so beautifully. So appreciated that.
So when you were doing your meditation, and it was about darkness and everything, and I'm sitting in the sun going, but there's so much light, and I thought of the joy everyone must have felt when the word got around that Jesus was appearing after his death, and other holy people were appearing, and I thought light filled their hearts, not darkness.
Yes, that's lovely, Carol. Thank you. Beautiful. Camille, yes.
Thank you, Nicholas. Beautiful. Well, we're certainly being crucified right now. So I hope the light appears soon.
Thank you, Camille. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you so much. I really appreciated what you talked about Kali, and then at the crucifixion, it just made me feel Mother Mary.
Made you feel?
Mother Mary.
Mother Mary, yes.
And her
yes.
son at
Yes.
the cross, and how all mothers and sons in our relationship with Jesus at this particular time in the story
Yes.
was so important. I really appreciated that. I'd never thought about it that way because I lived in India a long time.
Yes.
Never had that thought. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Good, yeah. And you feel the finality of it, don't you, with the disciples and with the women. There was no idea that the resurrection was going to happen. I mean, that just was so far from their minds. It was just the end of a huge hope that had always been building and building and building and seemed to be blossoming into this amazing sense of newness and regeneration, and suddenly squashed, totally squashed. Yeah, thank you. Somebody else. Nice to have a bit of silence in the chapel. Someone did give me some feedback that for me banging on all the time about meditation, we ought to have a little bit more silence in the chapel. So this does give us that opportunity. Louisa, oh, nice to hear you. I'll just pass you that, yeah. Yeah, thank you.
It's not a reflection on your talk, but I just wanted to ask about this photo, this painting.
It's William Blake. All the paintings that I've used this week are William Blake, and it is, I think it's something called The Comforting of the Dark Night or something like that.
So
it's a
is
William.
that supposed to be like an angel with someone in
I
pain?
haven't got the actual analysis of it,
Okay.
but I'm using a theme during Lent of William Blake. And when I put into my search engine William Blake Dark Night, that came up. And actually it is, I think, the angel comforting. If you look, there's a snake coiling around. And it is that experience of the dark night, whether it's God or an angel, who is actually bringing comfort in that experience. William Blake, I just really recommend William Blake, who wrote Jerusalem, funnily enough. Did you know that? And did those feet in ancient times walk up? That was William Blake who wrote that. And he also did these wonderful paintings as well. So, amazing man, William Blake. Thank you. Anybody else? Yes. Kelly, how lovely to see you. Fantastic. Love to have you.
I've thought about
what you were saying with the darkness being the gift.
Yeah.
And, I think there's almost a practice in that. And the way that I sort of reframed that is, when something horrible happens in your life, you kind of, like, I sort of tell myself, like, I'm sure there's a blessing in this somewhere that I can't see now.
Yeah.
But maybe I'll see later. And sort of the more I've worked through in my life, the more of a practice that's become, the more quickly I can get to that place of, the darkness is the gift, and I'm sure there's a blessing in this. And I also recognize there's a little bit of time lag. I was thinking of a friend who's had some scary health news, and I want to share this talk with her, but I'll probably wait, because I think right now, I'm not sure that the darkness being the gift is what she would be feeling.
No.
But that's just what I thought about here.
I think that's wise as well, Too soon sometimes, isn't it? To say, oh, well, this is a gift. You can imagine the response to that. And it's too soon, in circumstances, to see things as a gift. When what we're faced with sometimes is just the darkness there, and it just seems to go on for a long time. And just being with that and holding that in our hearts eventually allows us to feel or know something new. And it's because I love the idea that it lets our full self go. It's what actually crumbles the full self. And we're left with the reality of what is, rather than what we imagine we might hope to be, or for ourselves, or for what's around us. We move through it in a new way, I think. Patricia, yes, at the back. You have to come forward, Patricia, I think, because I'm not sure that it goes too far. Yeah, that's great. I think it's going to work now. There we are.
It doesn't?
That's good. It's working perfectly.
Oh, for him.
Thank you, Patricia.
I just was thinking, I have met the dark night of the soul more than one time.
Yes.
And I thought, what stood out so for me? And that was that place where in desperation you start to say thank you. And I did this thing where I was in my car and I was right about Clark's. And I looked up at that little mirror in the car and I just started saying thank you, thank you, thank you. And that has saved me in my dark night of the souls, is that thank you. And knowing that, I didn't know if it would ever end, because mine lasted a very long time. But there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, I think what you've said is amazing, that actually gratitude is something that can take us through that. Not necessarily even to the end of it, but it just gives us a place to go. There is always the opportunity for gratitude. In however dark our circumstances are, there is the opportunity for gratitude.
And it comes right from the heart. You mean it from the heart, but you don't mean it in your life.
Yes.
But you mean it from your heart, and you mean it with your connection with God.
Thank you. It's really great. Thank you, Patricia. Anybody else? Yes, Monterey.
What came to me in that, when you were talking about gratitude, and I was in therapy one time, and the therapist said, go over there and think of all the sad thoughts you have, and I'm going to time you. So he timed all those, and all the stuff was coming up, and then he said, it takes 5 glads for every sad.
5 what?
5 glads
Right.
for every sad.
5 glads
So
for every
it
sad.
takes 5 of them. That's one.
Thank you. That's lovely. It's always good to have these ideas. I think they're fantastic. Well, thank you. I really appreciate you engaging with that. It's not necessarily a thing that lots of it, but I really appreciate those comments that have been made. Thank you.